bet your damn asses I know about I Grew Up With. I put it in all my videos now to fuck with you.
Folks, the time is here. It is official that Chris Stuckmann and Neon Pictures have finally dropped the trailer for Shelby Oaks. We can finally say that we are about to get Stuckmannized at the cinemas. Now, I was hoping to get Stuckmannized last year when I thought this movie was going to come out, but it turns out that this film actually got more funding for its production, with the likeness of a big distribution company like Neon and a big-time director, Mike Flanagan, at least in the horror genre, to actually help add more scenes to the movie compared to what was shown last year at the Fantasia Film Festival. Because I believe this past March, or at least March of this year, they added some new scenes and I think did some reshoots to help refine the film due to the increase in the budget. But yeah, this film has been in production for a few years, and this particular movie is one I'm actually interested in. It's something that's been on my radar for a while, and we're going to get into that in this video and kind of go over the brief history with this movie and what my overall thoughts were on this trailer and what a movie like this could entail for the future of cinema. Or maybe not entirely all of cinema, but a particular aspect, that being upcoming filmmakers or independent filmmakers. I think there is something very important to take from a movie like Shelby Oaks. But before I do all that great stuff, I'm going to need you guys to do your due diligence and like this video and just go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to want to miss out on this certified banger content. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into this video. So the only reason I really know about Shelby Oaks, or why I've known about a movie like this for so long, was mainly because of a great YouTube channel known as Ben's Movie Channel, who hasn't necessarily made any videos in some time. I hope he does at some point. Hope that you guys doing okay. But yeah, he was the one that kind of covered Shelby Oaks. He was the one that exposed me to Chris Stuckmann's production of Shelby Oaks and like what Chris Stuckmann was up to for the past few years, because I believe production began in 2021, or at least the pre-production phase of Shelby Oaks began in 2021, because I remember the Kickstarter campaigns back in the day of, Chris Stuckmann needing a lot of the funds for this movie to help pull it off. And I just remember that particular aspect of this movie, or like the beginning process of this movie being made, and the many delays with the production process due to insufficient funds, and then a couple of hiccups with some strikes that went on in 2023 with SAG-AFTRA and all that bullshit. Despite all that, they did manage to pull this movie off and finally get it made. And believe it or not, this movie, at least with the funding, it became one of the most funded horror projects on Kickstarter, because it raised over $650,000. And then as of this year, the funding went over $1 million, with a little over 1,100 backers for this movie. And so I say all that to say that it's actually rather impressive for a YouTuber like Chris Stuckmann, a very well-known YouTuber who's known for his movie reviews, his well-thought-out critiques, minus his Madam Web review. But despite that, we all know him because he simply Stuckmannized a generation. We simply grew up with this guy. We grew up with his movie reviews, and because of that, you bet your damn ass I'm gonna show up to the cinemas day one to watch Shelby Oaks. But in all seriousness, folks, I am very intrigued with this movie. I'm curious if, Chris Stuckmann is going to pull it off with, the recent reshoots for this movie, because I heard from some sources near me, or some very close sources that got to see his movie last year at the Fantasia Film Festival, and some people said it was rather average at best. It really didn't do much for them as a viewer. Doesn't really tread new ground, but with the recent uptick in the production value or the budget, especially with the newly added scenes for this movie, hopefully that's changed. Hopefully people's opinions might change on this movie, and it might give a different perception on what they initially saw at the Fantasia Film Festival. But I think what interested me about Chris Stuckmann's movie was the fact that this seemed like another, let's say, Blair Witch Project. It seemed to be taking heavy inspiration from the Blair Witch Project and a lot of early 2000s horror movies. And for that particular reason, I was very much interested in this project, because I like a lot of horror movies from back in the day, especially the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s. Those are, you'll find a lot of my favorite horror movies from back in that time period. And so, there's some older ones from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but that particular era, especially the one I grew up in, Shelby Oaks kind of piques my interest in that regard. And another aspect that really piques my interest is the fact that, this movie is made by a YouTuber that's known for criticizing movies. And I know a lot of film reviewers on YouTube especially, who have gone out and tried to make movies. Like, I'll give you an example. The Critical Drinker, who made Rogue Elements. Yeah, not very memorable in the slightest. And some of the times, a lot of movie reviewers that become filmmakers or try to become filmmakers, the outcome of that becomes very cringe. A lot of people kind of write them off as like, oh, you have all this shit to say about movies, but when you go out and make one, turns out you're not the shit. And granted, there are some YouTubers that have kind of broken this mold, like the Raka Raka group, or those Australian twins that made that Talk to Me movie. Even though those guys, I wouldn't really consider them movie reviewers. Back in the day, I remember those guys for making that kind of like outlandish type of content, like almost prankster vibe videos, but to me they were just basically high value or high budget goofballs. But I bring all that up just to say that I think this could introduce a very interesting pipeline with YouTubers becoming filmmakers, or more YouTubers becoming filmmakers in a wider sense, a wider scale, like in the Hollywood industry, not just YouTubers making independent movies just for the sake of doing it. I think it introduces an interesting pipeline into this sort of workforce, and we're going to get into that towards the ending of this video. But that was just something I wanted to bring up very briefly. But something I wanted to talk about very quickly was my theater experience going to see it together, which was actually directed by a YouTuber, or somebody that has been on YouTube. But I heard about this movie, and I heard that there was a trailer attached for Shelby Oaks. This was the only way you could see it before they officially dropped the trailer on YouTube. I think it was going to be like on the following Monday. I saw this movie on a Saturday. And when I went to go see this movie, I did manage to see the trailer before it leaked online, of course. It's just my luck that it happened to leak online, like around the same time I go to see this fucking movie together, which is a one and done, by the way. I don't ever want to watch that shit again. Just fucking weird. I'm not into that body horror shit. Like, if that's your sort of bread and butter, then you may like the movie Together, but that shit was not for me. But this video is not about the movie Together and that fucking weird shit. It's about me seeing Shelby Oaks exclusively in the cinemas, or at least the trailer exclusively in the cinemas, although it leaked at the same time when I went to go see this movie. But I wanted to give you guys my overall thoughts on the trailer and what I think of it. And what I think of based on like what I've seen from this movie, or at least in the trailer, the footage we've gotten, it looks like a typical let's just say horror movie that you'd see in the early 2000s. That's something that one of my good friends from college brought up to me. He said that it reminded him of something from the early 2000s, and something I brought up that I thought was rather similar to another franchise, more of a video game franchise than a movie franchise, was Resident Evil, and to be more specific, Resident Evil 7, mainly just based on the premise of the main character tries to look for a loved one that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and they go on this like horrific journey to find this said person, this said missing person. And it just reminded me of the kind of the premise for Resident Evil 7, which is a husband tries to look for his wife out in the middle of nowhere, and he has to encounter this weird ass family and all these like horrifying things just to find her. And there's even points in the game where you have to basically access a VHS tape and then play it on a TV, and then it shows you stuff that happens prior to the events, like horrifying events, to kind of give you more of a context into this world, or the sort of family that you encounter, this evil family you encounter in the game. And this is something I kind of noticed within the Shelby Oaks trailer, is the main character playing, using a VHS tape and then playing it on a TV to try to get some clues as to where her sister is, or where she's missing, like, or why she went missing. It just, I couldn't help but make those comparisons. And granted, Stuckmann may have taken inspiration from something like Resident Evil 7, but I think one of his main inspirations for his movie was a Blair Witch Project and Rosemary's Baby. I believe that's what he said that he's taken inspiration from, or he took inspiration from when he was writing the script and then, filming this movie. But despite the similarities to other, movies or video games, I think what I'm seeing here in this trailer and the vibe it gives off is, it seems like a rather horrifying vibe, like nothing too scary, but I think Chris Stuckmann has nailed his own aesthetic for this movie. I think he's really gotten the point across that, it's supposed to give like this sort of found footage sort of look, like a hybrid of like real time and then found footage sort of vibe that's going on. Like, that's sort of the tonality of this movie, and I think he's executed that very well, and I can't wait to see if it actually lives up to what I have in my head about like how this movie's going to go. I think the premise is interesting enough, and I'm really curious as to like what new scenes they filmed compared to what people saw at the Fantasia Film Festival. I really want to know if this is a major upgrade to what he had initially. But yeah, that's going to do it for my overall thoughts from this trailer. We didn't get too much from the trailer, which is a good thing. I don't want the whole thing spoiled for me. And we'll just have to wait till October 3rd to get officially Stuckmannized. And once we approach the film's release, we may actually get an official answer as to why Chris Stuckmann refused to review Madam Web. Nah, all jokes aside, I kind of get why he didn't, and like why he doesn't review bad films anymore, or at least the way he puts it, because I think a few years ago he said he was going to stop critiquing movies that he thought was horrible in hopes of like not trashing filmmakers, because he had, gotten experience working in, productions and working on movies, and he went in with a new perspective that like, I don't want to be too harsh against filmmakers that, basically work their ass off to make these movies. And from that perspective, I get it, but at the same time, like, I think there's value in critiquing both good and bad movies. You can learn a lot from doing both of those things, especially if you make bad content yourself. Like, you can criticize yourself and have others criticize you. That's how you get better as an artist. I would know because I went to film school. I've done the whole shebang. And I get wanting to be charitable to other filmmakers that, put in a lot of time and effort into making movies, because, making movies is not as easy as it seems, especially writing screenplays for movies. There's a lot of thinking, and like there's a major thought process that goes on with everything involved in filmmaking. And I know Chris Stuckmann understands that, but at the same time, like, you got to be willing to like basically step out of those bounds and say, okay, this is objectively good and this is subjectively bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you don't have to view it as like you yourself attacking the person. Like, you're not attacking the person, you're just attacking their work. That's it. And I understand there's a lot of normie YouTubers, especially from the anti-woke sphere. A lot of those guys like to give their hot takes on whether they thought a movie was good or bad or just woke garbage. You've seen that shit. But I think someone like Chris Stuckmann has skin in the game because, he's made movies, and especially a feature film like Shelby Oaks. He has skin in the game to actually give valid criticisms, both good and bad. So I think he should definitely go back to critiquing horrible movies, if you want to even call it that. I know that's very subjective, but I think he should definitely go back to reviewing those kind of movies, not just movies that he likes in particular. I think there would be value from someone like him to review bad movies and give like his overall criticisms or analysis as to why the movie fell short in different aspects. I don't see how doing something like that is mean-spirited. In fact, it actually goes to show that you as a filmmaker care about other filmmakers' work, and that you actually took the time to, analyze what they did well and maybe what they didn't do so well. There's a lot of value in that. I think more film reviewers, especially those that do make movies, offer that sort of insight. I think that's super helpful. Chris Stuckmann, if you're watching this video, I doubt you are, or if you're listening, you should take my advice. You need to go back to reviewing both good and bad movies. I think your audience would really appreciate you and have a newfound respect for you. But to move on from that point and to get to my final point before I conclude this video is a certain thing about what a film like Shelby Oaks could represent for the filming industry going forward, or at least within the job market of the filming industry, or maybe different windows into getting into a particular industry like the filmmaking industry, because I know we live in a time, especially for Gen Z, that's the generation I fall in. We are in a very weird time, a very unique time where the job market is just absolute shit. We don't know where things are going to go. And this isn't just necessarily directed towards filmmaking or that job market. This is almost everywhere. Like the STEM degrees, people who, graduate in STEM, they're having a hard time finding jobs because they're getting pushed out by like DEI and H-1B visas and all that bullshit. Yeah, woke isn't dead. The golden age has been delayed. Yeah, jokes aside, pardon me, I had to make that joke. But I'm only saying this because there's a lot of people that went to college, or especially like within the filmmaking industry. I went to college, and I know a lot of my other friends did, and a lot of people are struggling to find work, and a lot of them are having to rely on freelance gigs and sometimes just having to network with certain people. But I'm hoping to get to a point where we can finally bypass that bullshit, because I know people say network is your net worth, but honestly, I think it's more accurate to say shilling covers the billing, because if you say the right things to certain individuals and you just shill the fuck out, you don't actually, give out your authentic take, you don't actually tell the truth, and you just suck ass just to get by, to get a job. I think there's a lot wrong with that. Instead of, hiring people that are actually passionate about their degree path or what their craft is. And there's so many people that say college is a scam, and it's mainly because of this, because there seems to be a lack of legitimacy now when people graduate with a bachelor's or even a master's and they can't get a job and they can't like find proper internships, or they're sending their resumes out everywhere and no one's calling them back, no one's emailing them back. Like, it's so shitty how things are. And like I just said, there's so many people that are just looking for jobs, and they have a master's in their preferred degree path, yet they're working as a cashier at their local retail store. Like, there's so much wrong with that. And it's not like they have like a liberal arts degree or like some like useless psychology degree. No, like these are like legitimate degrees and career paths that a lot of young people are failing to pursue because they're not getting the proper opportunity to show what they're worth, or like what their experiences are, if they're just not given opportunities to apply to jobs, especially entry-level jobs. And by entry-level job, I mean 0 years of experience, because you're coming out of college, or you've come out of high school and you're trying to get the ball rolling, or try to get a foot in the door at least. And a lot of young people like myself are not getting those opportunities, and in fact we're getting less of that. We're getting a lot of bullshit job listings that aren't even real, because the companies are having to post them just because they have to meet some quota or whatever, or they're just having to do some bullshit just to get by. It's ridiculous. I hate that this is the way it is. I'm really hoping there's some change involved in that. And I'm only mentioning college students and just people that are just trying to get their foot in the door in their desired career path, especially something like filmmaking. And I say all this to say that I think what a movie like Shelby Oaks represents, or maybe like someone like what Chris Stuckmann represents, is a unique way into this industry. If you can't take the front door, try a back window, right? I mean, I know there's multiple ways to get into this industry. Maybe not some ideal ways, but I think there should be more legitimate ways into this industry, especially if you've come out of film school, you've proven that you can do the work and that you could show up on time to your classes, or in the case of the job market, you could show up on time to the job itself, and not just necessarily rely on good networking, because a lot of the times it's not even just that. A lot of people do lie about sort of things like that. It's just because they were just good friends with somebody. They got the job out of pure luck. That's what I hear a lot of the times. And they're always hiring people, especially dumbass bimbos, who show up to set, and when a shoot's going on, they're on their fucking phones. And I had a friend of mine recently send me a clip of like the Punisher set, and he was showing me that like a lot of the guys were doing the work, and like there were some females here and there, like doing their job, and then you had other females on set that were not being very diligent with what was going on, and they were just all on their phones, not giving a single fuck about what was taking place. And that seeing stuff like that really irritates me, because I hear so many of my friends and so many people that have struggled to get into this job field because they're not given the proper opportunity to do so. People like these dumb bimbos are given the chance, or when they don't even deserve to be given the chance. And we're not hiring talented people, or people that are just at least passionate to just get some experience, even if it's like 0 years worth of experience. They're at least passionate to put themselves out there and to basically gain some experience so that they get better in their lives and can make a living for themselves. But hopefully with independent filmmaking, or just bigger studios like Neon coming in and helping fund Kickstarter projects like the one Chris Stuckmann has, I think that could be a unique opportunity going forward. And I'm really hoping that other studios kind of see this and start to get really competitive and start posting legitimate job sites, or posting legitimate job listings, I should say. Because I'm sure someone like Chris Stuckmann could have used all the help in the world to make his independent project. And it's kind of cool that somebody like Neon, or a company like Neon, and a filmmaker like Mike Flanagan helped step in to help with his project. I think stuff like this could be something noteworthy going forward. I really hope this goes somewhere, and that we bring some legitimacy back to the institutes, especially, film schools, and a lot of students can actually go out and get a job for themselves and enhance and sharpen their skills as filmmakers. I think there'd be a lot of value in that. And I'm hoping a lot of independent studios will start to get a lot more competitive, like kind of almost like take the Amazon approach, right? Can you imagine a world without Amazon now, if they had stepped in and kind of changed the game for manufacturing jobs and automation jobs, all that shit, and hiring workers and giving them a decent pay? Because that actually increased the competitiveness of every other warehouse industry and other industries for that matter, basically upping the minimum wage or basically increasing the salaries. I think something like that could happen for the filming industry if the right steps were taken. But all that being said, I hope things change for the better going forward. I hope more people, are able to get jobs and actually get hired for their skill set, or maybe just trying to find a way to get their foot in the door, right? Enhance their skills, sharpen their skills, however you want to say that. I hope stuff like that happens going forward. And like a lot of people that I know locally, and not just in the filming industry, but like every other career path, like whether it be STEM, business, whatever the case may be, like things just start changing for the better. And people are given a fair chance, like how previous generations were given a fair chance within the job market, and they were able to afford shit and afford housing, unlike today. But that's going to do it for this particular section of the video. I apologize for the yap session towards the ending, but I just wanted to get that off my chest and kind of give some sort of awareness as to what's kind of going on in the modern world and how it's affecting everyone. And but not even based on my experience, but other people's experiences, especially like close friends of mine who are, kind of dealing with this sort of madness going on in today, and not a very ideal one. But that's going to do it for this overall video. I want to leave it to you guys now. What do you think of Shelby Oaks? What did you think of the trailer? And do you think Chris Stuckmann is going to pull it off? And do you think he will officially Stuckmannize a whole generation of film goers? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this video, well, go ahead and drop a like. And if you want to see more stuff like this and more commentary on different movies, TV shows, and video games, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel because I'm going to give you certified banger content. But that's going to do it, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.
Fuck with you.
Get Stuckmannized.
Fuck with you. I grew up with. Fuck with you.